Hey, it's John here. This morning, I'm going to show you a model I built for one of our early adopters and one of our investors who is a gaming company. He's launching a free player game. It's going to be on the Meta Store. And then there's going to be different segments of folks that play that game with different sort of spend patterns. And we want to help him and his team model out what that can look like over time to run financials and calculations upon that. Been a really cool exercise, and I just want to kind of show that off because it's something a little bit different than we built in our software. So as a reminder, whatifi is a node-based connect the dots type of forecasting software that allows you to build dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of what-if scenarios, all using these pre-built business logic events. So for example, I've got things in here like customers and growth and contracts and loans and all sorts of these business logic pieces that you can connect together. The idea is you build the models visually instead of messing around with formulas and spreadsheets in Excel or Google Sheets. So I'll go through this one really basically, and if you've got questions or feedback, I'd welcome both of those. So one big thing is when you have a game, it's really common to have a viral coefficient. Now, it's like when a game first sort of launches, how many people start telling other people about the game right off the bat. So say this game is launching in February. There's going to be a big spike where a bunch of people start playing it and they tell some of their friends, and then there's a bit of a fall off and a burn that actually happens, and then it sort of stabilizes down. So we've been able to build this viral coefficient over time to model what it looks like when people start chatting about a game. So that's an important sort of thing. In here, we've got two different sort of player cohorts. They're the people that sign up for the early launch list. And then there's the people that actually convert over and start playing the game. And then there's three other really important segments as well. So in gaming, they call them Minnows, Dolphins, and Whales. And that reflects their spend pattern. Minnows, they pay, but they don't pay a lot. Whales will pay a lot, and they'll kind of, sort of subscribe to every package and every update that kind of comes along. We got the Meta Store. We got people that are visiting the Meta Store on a regular basis. We've got an ad spend where we can actually spend money to drive people to that website, and we can keep track of the cost per click, how much it costs people to get there. For example, if I'm spending $5,000 a month and $1 per click, that means there are 5,000 people that are landing on the website. Give the ability to do conversions. So what percentage of the people that land at the Meta Store actually sign up for the launch list? And there's some industry averages here. It's usually sort of 10 to 30%. It can be higher, it can be lower. So in this particular model, we're saying 20% of the people that land on the pre-launch page sign up for the game. Then we have another conversion metric that says, okay, of those folks that signed up, how many people actually play the game? On average, it's like 30% to 50%. We based a lot of this off of a game called Gorilla Tag. So we're saying, what if 40% of our people actually convert? Boom. Now you have all these people that are playing the game. What percentage of them actually become big spenders, small spenders? So here we have what's called a percentage event. And I'm able to go through and say of all the people that sign up the game, less than 1% of them become these whales that spend big. 1.5% of them become these dolphins that have a medium sort of spend, and 3% of them become minnows. So that means of all the free players, only 5% ever actually pay for the game. So that's what we're doing in these set of nodes that are here. It's also really common in games. You launch the game, but then you also have these DLC launches. So they can be like special worlds or packs or things that are kind of interesting that will re-engage players. So we have a launch window for this one. So for this company, we talked about what if every 3 months they launch another DLC unit here, something that's going to engage people, and then they're potentially going to pay for the game, right, for some of the add-ons. We've also got that virality. So back to the beginning where I showed you virality, we want to be able to, and this is a little bit more fancy, this is a formula that allows me to kind of calculate different kind of coefficients in it. What it means is for all the people that are playing, how many people are telling their friends and getting them in through non-paid acquisition channels. But the reality is people don't play games for long. So we also have what's called a churn event. So of all of our free players, right, it's quite industry sort of standard that churn can be quite high, especially if they haven't spent any money and they have low commitment. So here we're saying that every month, 50% of the people that are in that free plan are churning out. You lose them very, very quickly. It gets a little different though when you get into the people that are actually paying. So if your whales who've invested a lot of time and money, they're going to churn at a much smaller rate, 5% month over month over month. Dolphins that have invested some money into the game may be churning at 15%. And your minnows that put a little 50 cents here and 50 cents there, they're going to churn at a different rate, so 30%, right? So we're able to do all that. What gets cool though is the reason people do these DLC launches and create these is someone may leave the game, right? So they're no longer a monthly active user, but how do you get them back? And you sort of promote this particular content. So this is another expression event, again, complicated formulas, but we're taking a re-engagement factor of 7.5%, which is sort of an average in here. So anytime you have a major DLC drop, 5 to 10% of people may re-engage. So we put in this value of 7.5%. So we're saying that particular group comes back and re-engages with the game, and then they start to churn out at the same time as well. Revenue calculations. So here, what do we have in here? This is sort of a sense, again, a little bit of ChatGPT, what actually happens when you're forecasting revenue. So Minnows on a game like that might pay 50 cents a month. Dolphins could pay $2 to $5, and whales could spend anywhere from $10 to $25 a month, right? So here we've modeled in those pricing cohorts. So for example, here's Dolphins at the high end, and we've probably got something like Dolphins at the low end. So that's at $2 to $5. And then we're calculating two different versions of the future. The low revenue window and the high revenue window, and then a bunch of formulas and calculations on what it looks like, what the KPIs are, how many people are downloading the game, and even the meta cut. So I think meta takes 30% of the revenue from a game, so we're also able to model all that. So what does that mean? Well, if I kind of zoom back out here, here's this model, but I'm able to run two different scenarios at the same time, and we can look at those scenarios through any type of lens. So for example, this particular game here, after meta takes its cut, after all their spending, after spending $5,000 a month, they're going to be sitting on 1.92 million in their best case scenario, and they're going to be sitting on 665,000 in their worst case scenario. And there's a lot of things that aren't in this model expense-wise. It's really just a revenue model and advertising sort of model, but you get a sense of that. We can look at how many players they have over time and what that looks like. So you can see, for example, every single time they launch one of those DLCs, they get a spike in players coming back and re-engaging with the game, right? And what do their segments look like for these DLCs? And we give you the ability to look at customers and dolphins, minnows, and whales all at the same time in here. And we can see what those look like over time. So whales stick around a lot longer, so you can see they become a much bigger chunk of your segment over time in this model, whereas your dolphins and minnows are a much smaller percent. So that churn is huge. And then as a result, that also means that your revenue from your whales versus your dolphins versus your minnows makes a huge difference here as well. And your whales represent a much larger percentage, even though they're 0.5% of your active gamers. Anyway, that's kind of what we built. Super nerdy. Always welcome feedback. And if anyone is in the gaming industry and has either notes or suggestions for me or is interested in modeling these things out, I welcome the opportunity. Thanks.